the invocation remain standing for the pledge of flag. Father, again, we beseech you to make your presence known this evening, that we will have your wisdom and your guidance in all the decisions that we make this evening. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody turn your cell phones off, so I will be collecting $5 each time it goes off. There you go. Because usually it's me. All right, first item of business is consideration of a resolution to approve the agenda. I don't know how to look at an agenda that don't have at least 25 items on it.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Since this is under old business, consideration to approve an annual agreement with Motorola Communications, towers and 911 equipment, public safety radio infrastructure maintenance. This has been tabled twice previously, and the main reason for this special meeting, Mr. Meyer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Edwin Meyer, Director of Emergency Management. The item on the table is the service agreement for our current 4.1 radio system and the E911 equipment. In previous years, we have maintained service agreements on both systems. However, this is the first year that we have combined the two under one agreement for simplistic reasons. The 4.1 system for the fiscal year 2013 budget was $40,181 and will not see an increase for this upcoming year. E911 equipment for fiscal year 2013 budget was $58,980 and will be increased to $88,458 due to the Vesta and CAD software support coming out of warranty. The annual service agreement for both systems is $128,639.59, which has been included in the approved fiscal year 14 budget in Department 20 and Department 35. It should be noted that the approval of this service agreement will have no effect on the upcoming consideration to upgrade the communications system. If the decision is made to either make no change or to upgrade the southern region of our communications infrastructure, then we will need this service agreement to protect our current investment. If the decision is made to upgrade the entire communications infrastructure, this agreement would still be needed until that system went online. At that time, we would receive a prorated service credit.
Any questions by the board?
We don't have any other option, do we?
Yes,
This is
sir.
sort of it.
Yes, sir, it is.
Do it or not. That's y'all. Do it or not.
That's right.
Well, this has been outlined to the board several times in different formats, and it keeps rolling downhill to tonight. So
Yes, sir.
the contract for the agreements that we got expired on June 30th, so they have given us a 30-day grace period, so it's either act today or it gets canceled.
That is correct. And one of the things to note, over the past year under this service agreement, we have saved $60,000 in damage because we had a maintenance agreement in place.
And Savannah Communications and Motorola, I see, is both here this evening. Would either of y'all like to have anything to say?
Motorola is here. Sorry. Well,
Sir?
they're behind me.
You're both here.
You're
I'd be
good?
happy to answer any questions that you have, but I think we're.
Is there any questions or input or from any of the audience? Okay. No questions by the board, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Sure did.
Thank y'all, for, taking care of our lightning strikes and all for us. Thursday grace period, we do appreciate it.
No problem, we appreciate your business.
All right, next item, under new business, consideration to approve a lease agreement with Stanley and Betty Brown for a building located at 508 Tyne Street. Mr. Allen?
Yes, sir, this is for the building the juvenile justice currently occupies. The proposed lease is for a rental fee of $1236.83 per month. It's a one-year term with 4 additional one-year options.
What about the building that the drug enforcement down, right down the road here just moved out of? What's the matter with that?
It would take some upgrades to get into timing in this particular instance.
Pardon?
It would take some upgrades to get into it. You remember there were some additional offices that had to be added, some additional walls for the building to meet their particular needs. It would work, it just would not work in 10 days. It would take, 60, 90, 120 days to get the improvements made.
So if we decided to do that, to move to another location, because I know this has been discussed about moving this in the past, with this lease, do we have an out? In 90 days, can we get out of it? Or is this a full 1 year period?
My understanding.
This is a one-year lease.
It's a one-year lease. I think that the question you're asking is, do we have like 90-day out or
They
something?
have early out calls on.
Exactly.
Does Eric, do you have, has an early out call?
It does not. Not here.
Don't,
You're about that?
yeah, I don't, there's not one.
The landlord had, and when we were discussing previously, had asked for a 5-year lease.
Yes, sir.
And I stated that if that was the case, then we needed to have a 30-day out clause in there. The landlord has come back and given us a 1-year lease with 4 renewals
Yes, sir.
of the same terms. So this particular lease and the manner that we have it to review it tonight is a 1-year lease, period.
So if we look at that, we look at it and return it at the end of the 12 months and do whatever we need to do with the other building.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to move it, and I have to answer the question, there's several other buildings and spaces that have been looked at in addition to the one that Commissioner Loper mentioned, so, certainly we can get them in another building where we can capture all of the rent we're getting from the state, and it's obviously a smart move, financially for the county. The reason here, or the thought was just to give us time to make that move, because I don't know if we have any space currently available that fits their needs on an immediate basis.
But we also are contractually obligated to the Department of Justice.
Yes,
At the
or the
present,
state, yes.
to the state for
And
that
there's a
building.
one-year leases also, yes, sir.
This is a stopgap measure to buy some time to renegotiate with the state, to move and get everything done.
The lease is not necessarily for that building, though, is it? It's for a building.
It's for that building.
It is for that specific building.
So we have a lease with the state that's binding us, but we don't have a lease with the landlord.
Yeah, we have to both of them.
No, because it's been expired for quite some time.
We've got a hold of it.
Yeah.
Without reviewing the lease, because I did not review the lease with the state, it has a schematic drawing that says we're leasing this space, this space, this space, this space. So it doesn't contractually say it has to be this building, it has those dimensions as a drawing.
And
And
it actually has the address on it.
I think it does as well. Now, the caveat to that is they, through our preliminary discussion about moving to another location, have said, and in their contract, upon mutual agreement, they can terminate the lease. So there is a termination there, but as Toss alluded to, there is no building that currently facilitates all their needs. Their copier has to be in a separate room because they get sensitive information. They're looking for an office space where everybody has an individual office. They're having case management with 2 people. Somebody has to leave the office to provide files and things like that.
Well, and while I haven't seen a copy yet, I believe of the lease that has expired that we're talking about, I believe Eric had mentioned that it did have an automatic renewal, although it is proper, it should have been brought before us every year to vote on.
Well, and And that then leads into the $1,000 deal.
Did it not?
Because if it automatically renewed, then it should be the $1,000, not the $1,236.
I can't recall, it had a finite number of renewal terms. And then after that, I think we became a holdover tenant, and under Georgia law, you're a holdover tenant at the same terms of the original
Well,
agreement.
that's where you get into the convolution of where the people leasing the building to us say they had a meeting with somebody where a new lease was supposed to be drawn up and new terms were agreed to, and that's how that new amount was arrived at. And we were paying a different amount, so somehow that happened. But if the
That
documents
lease
is
and
back
that
up.
agreement is somewhere?
That-
That 1236 agreement is somewhere? Because nobody seems to be able to produce it.
I understand that.
Are we voting on the past or are we voting on the current lease agreement?
We're voting on what we're going to do to move forward. I think the discussion is that it's probably smart with the amount of buildings that we have, that we need to have a plan of action how we're moving forward and not lock into a long-term lease. Now, a year is not a long-term, but I'd like to have an out of some kind that if we can, in a few months, move forward on some of these other buildings, maybe even the school site, that, once that's cleared up. But there's other buildings here in Springfield, and I believe that $1,200 a month for that space with the limited parking it has is fairly pricey for Springfield.
Well, the state's reimbursed us for that entire amount, is not?
Yeah, that amount here.
That's not coming out of our pocket.
We have to pay it anyway, we pay the interest.
Right, we're given.
I
And I would say this lease
Why?
is consistent with what we discussed the last meeting.
A year is reasonable because it'll give us time to look at not just this, but other organizations and groups in a comprehensive way and make changes we need, I feel like. So I thought a year is reasonable to look at it in that way.
I believe it would be better to pay the rent and not have this issue right now, continue to move forward to move to another space.
No other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the lease agreement as presented.
A second?
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
The record shows Mr. Mason opposed. All right. Next item of business, consideration to approve a planning boundary for the Coastal Region Core Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO. I skipped one.
I know it's a short agenda, but
You know what?
You better put it back.
That's a terrible thing to waste, aren't it? My God's in her. Consideration to sign a quitclaim deed for lot 20 South Effingham Plantation.
Chairman, I'm going to step down on this because we were the developer.
Okay. What you got, Mr. Dowling?
Mr. Chairman, the short version of this is there were, you'll see about 8 or 9 different transfers in your facts and findings. I'll be glad to read them if you'd like, but basically the property, the intent was to do a recombination plat of both, I believe this is 17 and lot 20, to where the house and the pond were joined through a series of incorrect deed references and transfers. There is ambiguity as to whether or not the county has any interest in title to this particular detention pond. The county has no interest in having title to the detention pond. We are perfectly fine with having the lot joined back to it. So Mr. Corellis has prepared a quit claim deed for the county to sign, just basically relinquishing any interest that we may have to that particular property. The only thing that was brought up earlier that we may want to consider that is not in the quit claim deed is should the county want to maintain access easements over those detention ponds. We don't own them, we don't want to maintain them, but should we have to for any reason, it's never a bad idea to have an easement. As you can see, there's road here, pond there, we have direct access to them. It's not a matter of being able to get to them, it's just a matter of, these are conjoined with the lot, it's not our property, if we ever had to do anything like that. And let me go back further, say, we're only talking about this one here. At this point, we're only talking about lot 20.
Does the other lot above it, does it have the access easement you're referencing?
Honestly, don't know the answer to that. You got the plat right here, you might want to speak for me.
the only reason there came in access rights at all would be to deal with an emergency. If there's a washout and it was
still can't answer. This is the original plat, which had all of this as one single lot all the way across, and there were no easements there, mainly because it was one lot with all the ponds and you could access it directly. There was a subsequent recombination plat filed. You have the recombination?
I could speak to it and explain what happened if you want me to do that.
And there is a drainage easement, shown on the recombination plat, so, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not so sure we don't already have that. If you notice, it calls the entire thing a drainage easement on that recorded plat.
I have no problem with Commissioner Jones speaking to the board as the developer. She's refused herself from the discussion, that I would like to hear her information.
Sure.
Because she's probably as familiar with it as anybody.
Thank you. Vera Jones. Originally, the deed, which you'll see in your explanation there was a deed filed in June, and I believe a corrective deed was filed in August, because the county did not want to service detention ponds. As a general rule, they don't do it, and they don't choose to do it, don't want to do it. So we did a corrective deed so that each one of the lots on each side of the property would get a detention pond. I believe the lot numbers are 19 and 20. But on each side of the cul-de-sac, each one would get its own detention pond. We filed that deed in August. Upon subsequent sales, when different sales took place, somehow, when they did the title work, they went back and instead of naming the description of the most recently filed deed as would be appropriate, they used the first deed that was no longer appropriate and only gave the smaller lot without the pond to the new buyers, which was incorrect. And this is basically a correction.
You're saying deed,
Plat reference.
are you talking about plat?
I may be using,
Right.
Yeah, plat.
But you're right, it was a plat reference in the deed that was wrong. It referred to the earlier plat, not the corrected plat.
and they would, and they specified the size of a lot, and then that made it incorrect because they would say like 0.3 something instead of 1 point something. It's just correcting an error.
Okay. So the intent is for, on both sides of the road, for the last lot to include the
Yes.
detention
For
pond?
this, yes, sir.
Yes.
This line to go away.
And this is only correcting one of them because I believe the resident has taken the steps to try to be sure it was corrected because she found the problem.
Gotcha.
Because ultimately, again, the county does not want to be responsible for maintaining all of that. It's a benefit to the county.
So how did it was recorded, and the county recorded this? How was it recorded originally?
We recorded it, but when sales took place and attorneys' offices did title work, there were errors made.
Plat, right.
Whoever was buying and selling
So the attorney's office is the one that did the,
made the error after us.
Pretty much all the subsequent sales were done, just like Rick said, off of the original subdivision plan, which showed another line here and showed all this as one lot. Then there was another plat filed to combine this into one lot and this into one lot. And all the sales referenced the original plat.
Okay.
And
Come to the, and state your
I'm-
name for the record.
my name is Mary Kaiser, and my husband and I own what is now described as .39 acres. But when I did my research, the first person who actually built the house on our property, his first tax bill was for 1.41 acres, which is what the second plat describes. And somehow, as I go through the records, they go from page 46 to page 146 to page 147, and then back to 146, which is the original plat. And they forgot about the new plat. And I think the problem was it went into bankruptcy, and they just, so I did the research and found out that it was just the wrong plat that they put on there.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
So then when the county took the roads, it was inclusive of that end of the road, the detention pond. So this is just basically asking that we give up the county's interest in that retention pond.
Which is, if we as best as whether we have an interest, I think, so that's,
If we actually have one at all.
which is the purpose of the quick claim. We're just saying if we have any, we're giving up any interest that we may have to.
We wouldn't want that interest if we had it and somebody else does, so.
Can, from a legal standpoint, can we ask for an easement if we're not even sure that we have an interest in it to begin with?
I think once.
Would the Kaisers be, would the owners be willing to give the counties an easement across it if we needed to go across there for an emergency?
Oh, to get back to the plumbing or get back to, because I know the sewer system runs behind there. Because I fought it out too, and they finally put a sign up to keep kids from mudding back there.
Ms. Cox, could you step up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We record these, it's just difficult.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So.
Yes, sir. We don't have any problem with vehicles that are with the county driving back to work on the sewer or
The sewer
runs right through there. In fact,
Sanitary sewer?
Yes.
yes, sir. And when I moved in,
It's got to be easement
the local teenagers were using that easement over in the woods there, just past your yellow line. They were mudding there, and they were just about into the table of your sewer lines. And that, I guess that had been going on for 5 years. And I finally had the county put a sign up right in the middle there to keep cars and from going back there and spin their wheels, because there's nowhere for them to go. They just sit there and spin their wheels over your sewer system.
Yeah.
But
The recombination, there's easement shown there, I guess, and Eric's looking at it, I don't know who they actually say the easements go to, or if it properly conveys them,
But that easement may not give us rights to the storm system. It may
No,
just
there's
be
two.
specific to the.
there's two, it shows a drainage easement with an arrow to the entire lot. Maybe we just need to get that put in this year.
If the board wanted to retain an easement, the cleanest way to do it would probably be to get an easement from the Kaisers once title is unified through the quick claim deed and any other.
So how through this process did the county get responsible for this?
On the roads?
Yeah, in number 6 on sheet of February 2010, I got you, this was actually written, I stole it from Eric's email to Ted. Ted prepared a deed conveying from D.M. Jones to the county all that certain light tract and parcel consisting of the water system, sewer system, and detention ponds located within South Effingham Plantation, and in reference to the original plat, not the revised plat. So
at that point is when the error was made in the descriptions, and that's how the county's responsible for correcting this. And by responsible, I mean paying the bill. Is that right?
yeah, and that was a whole nother issue that I think Eric spoke with them about, that we had the same problem, and we weren't sure we should pay the bill on that either. I don't
I
know.
mean, if Corellis is the one who made the mistake, Corellis needs to be the one fixing the mistake.
I don't know if in this case, but the deeds are always reviewed and approved by the county attorney, or they're not, or they don't let us record them.
We don't, our office doesn't ever review the accuracy of the legal description, we merely.
I don't know what you review. I just know that they've been sent back to us 2 and 3 times to correct, because we're sent corrections that says, Eric says correct this.
We look at the format, we always
Sorry.
explain, we're not qualified to read a plat.
So regardless, the attorney that made the mistake is the one correcting the mistake, and I just don't see the $650 bill. As far as quick claiming, if it
I
was
was
that,
about it, to be honest. He and I discussed it, and I don't think he has any heartburn about working with the county on this to get it correct. And the errors go back. The errors go back to the October 2006 deed.
Yeah. Conveyed to Robert Wells Construction, yeah, it was made prior to that, it was several transfers that went back.
Yeah.
I would agree with Steve.
yes.
So does anybody?
Who would be responsible with the county to make sure it's correct?
You've got engineers and other people qualified to read plats. This one,
I mean, I just want to make sure, you know. County can end up
sounds like the board at that time accepted detention law. Because that was an item listed.
I think that's another issue, Mr. Chairman, that has changed over time, the board's position as to whether they would or wouldn't take detention bonds, much like the way that infrastructure used to be. There was a one-year maintenance period, and then it was accepted, and now it's accepted. I think there have been some changes over the years in just that.
There was a transition period.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put words into this board's mouth, but it sounds like there's a motion brewing to grant this quitclaim deed on the condition that Mr. Krause does not expect payment for his bill, and that we will receive a easement back from the Kaisers for the purpose of maintenance.
So in our package, alternative is, and in funding, no funding is required. So we've already contemplated that we're not going to pay this bill.
Yeah, and I know that Eric had spoken with him on that very same issue, and because we had the same exact opinion, that we should not be paying for this, based on him making the error, quite frankly.
Anybody got a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve alternative number 1, signing the quitclaim deed contingent on the attorney taking care of the legal costs.
With do you want an easement?
Oh, did we determine that we need an access easement? Do we,
I think it'd be the cleanest way, yes, sir.
should we put it right with the utility easement? Or just make it vague that an access easement somewhere and let it get agreed on?
Well, it runs right through the cul-de-sac. I mean, that's huge.
There is it's an actual easement there too.
Yeah, the sewer runs through here, obviously, you can kind of see it on the aerials, but I would suspect we want an easement over pretty much the entire lot for the purposes of drainage. Now, I don't know why we could just call it a drainage and utility easement,
Okay.
because we have access basically from right away.
Okay. So I'll make the motion as stated with adding the drainage and utility easement for access to the pump.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. So Mr. Allen is going to work with our attorney then to be sure that we get that easement drawn.
Yes, sir.
And any quitclaim deed that I'm asked to sign will have the proper verbiage in it, or will an easement be provided at the time that I sign it? I just always like to be sure what I'm getting when I start signing stuff.
I think we could do it either way, either in that or a separate easement agreement that simply references the plat, the 140. D1, it was referenced to 134D1, lot 20, I think it covered. But yes, well, I work with the attorney, Mr. President, to handle that.
All right, now can we go to number 3? Consideration to approve a planning boundary for the Coastal Region Core Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Mr. Chairman, this is an item, as you're aware, we've been involved in many of these discussions. In the 2010 census, the Savannah urbanized area now comes into the southern portion of Effingham and the northern portion of Lyon County. Those two counties will be in the reapportioned MPO board. Mr. Thompson thinks he'll have that by January 14th. Probably a little optimistic, but at some point we will be in that board. One of the first steps that we have to determine is the planning area within our county. That being the area in which the MPO does planning stuff, quite frankly. And the reason they want to know that is that sort of drives the staff that they need to have, the amount of stuff studies they need to have, the things that go on, which begin to determine the fees associated with this. There's quite a bit of information that I put in your packages, because I know some of y'all have seen this, some of y'all have not. I'll go over as much or as little as y'all want to look at on this. I really just wanted to make sure that this board understood what an MPO was, what an MPO does, why we're coming into the MPO, what's being asked of us, so that you can make some decisions. Several things will have to happen. Again, this is the first step. The board really needs to make a vote on a boundary, because this is something that y'all have to own going forward. And at some point as we progress through this, you will be approached with an MOU. We'll actually sign an MOU with the MPO, and there'll be one with every one of the entities that they serve, which will be us, Bryan County, City of Rankin, Richmond Hill, and then the existing MPO, which is about 16 or 18 different organizations that are all listed on the first sheet, this page 2 of 23. You'll see all the different entities that make up the MPO as it currently exists. So again, this is y'all's meeting. What Tom has proposed is to look at the first 12th congressional district boundary, which, as you see, is shown on this red line here.
Tom?
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to ask you a question for you. So, the way it stands now, they don't get the south end, we don't have any say-so about that.
No, sir.
We don't have any say-so about that.
Yes, sir. You absolutely do. Where it stands right now, the law says that the MPO must have the area that's urbanized and the area that's expected to be urbanized in the next 20 years. This little pinkish color right here represents the urbanized area rounded to the nearest roads. So they came out, and these actually follow roads, and there's a description in your book that tells you where they are. It goes up 17 to Jabez, over to 30 in Hodgeville and McCall, back around Westwood Heights.
But I read it there somewhere, it talked like the south end of Effingham was already in. They were going,
This
we didn't
pink
have no
portion,
choice on that.
this pink portion, you do not, no, sir. Anything other than that is your choice, yes, sir. We can have the entire county, we can have a portion of the county, and what we've decided up to this point, we approached the cities of the cities of Springfield and Guyton, and asked them, would they like to be in this? They both said they would prefer not to be. Rankin, as you can see, most of their cities in it. I think they're fine with putting the entire city in there. You know, this is the Grandview tract, obviously, so most of what's populated is included in the boundary anyhow. What the MPO has proposed is the congressional boundary. We have put this item before our Transportation Advisory Board. They voted, as a non-binding vote, obviously, to have the smallest area that we can possibly have. I actually discussed this with Ms. Purcell earlier today. Her opinion is to take the smallest area we can possibly have. I think the chairman will agree, his opinion is to have the smallest area we can possibly have. So what I'm asking for the board for is, do you want to come up to this boundary? Do you want to come halfway through the county? Do you want to take the smallest area we can possibly get?
Well, if you go half the county, you don't split Springfield and Guyton, so
Yes.
you don't need to do that.
Correct. There were any number of proposals, if you look in the,
6 differences, I think.
yes, sir. And we looked at it as the southern 6th most congressional census tracts or blocks, the larger one. Those split the cities, the congressional, the commissioner districts, as you know, yours splits 3 different, Mr. Logan, yours is in, 3 cities in the county. So those didn't work either. The first 12th actually does work out because it doesn't split into cities, but do we want to go up that far north? Or do we want to try to keep it as small as we possibly can?
It'd be cheaper for us to keep it as small as we can, because we don't have to pay our percentage, or you don't have people take care of it, and all this kind of stuff.
That's the other problem we have, is they've not committed to funding as of this point. And no one will really answer, because I don't think they know. What we know is that the MPO puts out what they call a unified work program every year, which is basically their budget. It's approved, so we know what the costs are, we just don't know how to be split. Those splits will be determined through the bylaws, basically, of the organization, which, as I understand it, is determined by their policy committee, the MPO's policy committee, by a vote of their committee. What I discussed with Ms. Purcell this morning, what I think is probably the next logical step is at some point for it to transition away from staff, speaking with staff, and to have the elected folks talk to the elected folks, the people that are ultimately going to vote on this stuff, to begin to work some of these things out. Have, the chairman go speak with the chairman of Chatham County Commission, the mayor of the city of Savannah, and to begin to work some of these issues out, because I could recommend to you that we make the boundary here or here, but ultimately this board makes a decision.
I think we need to keep it as small as, because they do mention somewhere in there about the cost is on the population who's in it, so the least amount of people we have in it, then that's less money we got to pay out.
The initial proposals are for 16 votes on the reapportioned MPO. We have been led to believe that we will get 2 of those, that Effingham County will get 2. Presumably, the county would take 1, Rankin would take 1. Again, that's the MOU between you, Rankin, and the MPO. But that's the initial thought that we would get. One of the ideas that's been kicked around is to take the total cost of the MPO, divide it by the number of votes, and that's what we would pay on. So we would pay 2/16 for the total cost. And that was roughly 50,000, is that right? It is, the 2 votes divided by the number is.
I think it's $20,000 for each one of them, I believe is what it said.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was exactly, it was 40 something, I believe, approaching 50, yes, sir.
Bottom line is, I don't think moving it from what has to be in there to the 12th line is going to make any difference in our costs.
I don't believe it will either.
If we start going past that, the other good thing about the 12th line is that people that live there, it's a good defining point.
It also affects pots of money. This is going to affect DOT funding in a number of ways. There's urban funds and there's rural funds. And this is where it gets a little trickier, because there's a lot of funding sources that we as a county have never dealt with or gotten into, because we're a rural county. We don't qualify for the urban funds. So these L230 funds, and I think they changed the M230 on the map 21. But some of the planning funds, the discretionary funds, we've never qualified for. So there's a whole different set of pots out there that we've never been able to get into, but it's still congressionally balanced. So the 1st and 12th are congressionally balanced. So if we go to the line, anything will be an MPO in the 12th congressional district, and anything in the 1st will be, I said it back. Yeah, anything in the 1st will be subject to MPO. Now, the other things that we need to understand is the only thing the MPO controls are federally funded projects. Our LMIG dollars have nothing to do with the MPO. We still control those regardless of if they took the entire thing. If we were to get a T grant like City of Springfield's doing right here, those are done through congressional approvals. Those are not subject, they're shown in the tip, but the MPO does not control them. Federal earmarks, which as we all know were cut out in map 21, but the ones that still hang around, the ones that we have for the parkway, would be shown in the tip, but not controlled by the MPO. Those are still under our discretion. Safe route to schools money, the safety and striping money, the safety pots that are out there that are federal dollars are still not controlled by the MPO. The only things they control are federal dollars that flow through GDOT's program, through the tip in this standpoint where we have a still. They have a tip, and it's just one's incorporated with the other. Again, boy, I'll jump on here, but I do want everybody to understand that it's a complicated thing that we've never dealt with because we've never had to. But so, in other words, in my opinion, making a planning boundary here, we're not going to have a federal project in this area. The only federal projects that we have now are the Effingham Parkway and I-16 River Road. Anything else that we have would not be subject to MPO control. And interstates, even in that, are different. They're still managed by GDOT. The MPO still has no control over those roads. So if they took the whole district, the I-16 River Road stuff, it would be in their tip, but it really wouldn't be controlled by the MPO. Now, the Parkway's a different story. That would be controlled by them. And there's a couple of things that are weird. In order for a project to be on the tip, it has to be in their long-range transportation plan. Problems with that are they're now updating their long-range transportation plan, and they're on 5 to 7 year cycles. So they're going to want some money to redo what they just did. However, again, in our case, Effingham Parkway is already in their long-range transportation plan, because GDOT was looking out for us and made sure it got put in there. So it's already there, so it's already, matter of fact, it's in the tip. It's in the tip for fiscal year 15 for right-of-way funding for the Chatham portion, which is an MOU that there is forthcoming that will be for y'all's approval here as soon as I get it from the family. So we're in a lot better position than Bryan County is, because none of their stuff is in there. They're going to have a potential law to actually get projects where they can be included.
Personally, I'm in favor of not being in it at all. That's not an option, and it's still not a dead thing that we can get with policy committee to possibly fund engineering in here. See, that would, instead of us just giving 50 grand to Tom Thompson, it would be a lot better if we could make contributions, in other words, into this program.
In kind type stuff.
There have been a number of proposals, and I want to be very heavy on emphasis to this at all at staff level, and nothing has been approved. These are just ideas kicked around.
Yeah.
But some of those have been, what the chairman said, David actually suggested to them, and Tom never said no. In fact, I think he was in favor of doing an in-kind type thing with staff time, of using our engineering staff as an in-kind contribution to the MPO. And I sort of like the idea because it puts our staff looking out for our county in our building, working directly for us. So there's a lot of benefits to that. That was a proposal that was kicked around. Another one was looking at going into, and I guess it would be in the bylaws, I'm not sure how we would actually flow this through, but making a portion of the L230 funds, or M230 in Act 41, the discretionary funds, come up to say that there would be some sort of formula that all the local governments would get money back. In other words, you would have X amount of dollars allocated to you specifically discretionary to use where you want it. So you're paying dues in, but you're guaranteed money back. So it sort of washes the dues out, and it's done through the 230. So we kind of, the problem is these are federal funds, and it's just like any other federal fund, it's a 20% match. So for every dollar that the federal government puts in, which are the M230, the planning funds, we have to put 20 cents in.
But tonight you're asking us to vote on a boundary.
On a boundary.
And that does not lock in how we're agreeing or what we're agreeing to pay, is that right?
No, ma'am. It
And that's
does
still,
not.
that still can be negotiated.
That's correct.
This is the first part of a
A
long
long,
process.
a very long negotiation with a lot of moving parts to it that we have, I have no answer for you. I mean, there's been a lot of proposals, but again, they've been on staff level, and it would almost be like me going and telling them what my board's gonna do. I can't do that.
Well, I'm trying to hear
Nor can Tom.
the people that sit in on the meetings are yourself and I believe the chairman. Am I understanding correctly, it's your recommendation that we go with the district line on the, is that what seems to make sense to you guys? And is that what you're saying that the transportation board was
Well,
saying?
I think
Or not?
It's not that many people, it's not
I'm trying to
gonna take in that many more people, so it wouldn't make any difference as far as.
I don't think it's gonna make any difference to go to that line, but when you start trying to take in the whole county, then you can start making differences.
I don't believe it, I'll show you
For
why.
my recommendation, based on everything that I've heard and seen.
A lot of that purple area is swamp down there. You know, a lot of the acres is, yeah.
Well,
This is a 20-year deal? Did I gather that? This is a 20-year?
No. We can revisit this planning boundary anytime we want to. That will be a deal, and again, that's in the bylaws of the MPO, I guess, how often we want to revisit the boundary or not. Now, at the next census, 10 years, well, not 10 years from now, but at the next census, this law reset itself again, and as this boundary grows, we'll have to keep chasing what becomes urbanized. It's supposed to be, and I think what you're saying, what the comment I made, the law reads that the area that has to be in the MPO is the urbanized area, plus the area expected to be urbanized in the next 20 years. That's been a big issue of debate, because if you try to figure out how urbanization works, I don't know if these people are really smart that work for the Department of the Census people, or they're just throwing darts at the wall. But it's a very convoluted way that they go about doing this stuff. And we have tried with our GIS people, their GIS people, and we finally said, let's just pick a line. Because I don't really know how they do it. It's done by population densities. The blocks continuously change. You can't just, they don't stay consistent. It's a very weird process. This is not the exact urbanized area. That's shown in the handouts I gave you, somewhere in the exact area. This was that area pushed out to the nearest geographical boundary, a road, a creek, a railroad track. This has been sent to federal highway by Core NDO. And it, as of last week, when I talked to them, they had not been approved yet. So what we're discussing here tonight is this area in here in between the congressional boundary and what we know has to be in there.
I think it's a plus that we would have a congressional representative that would represent that area, if we did it that way.
We'll have that anyway.
We'll still have.
I understand that
It
you have,
would be-
you have a voting block in there that can put pressure. You've got a whole voting block in there.
It would be simpler to say to the congressional line, but is there a reason to or not to? Is there a reason to make it larger or small?
I'll answer that.
Hey, I'm lost. This is very,
I'll answer that on both sides if I can, to play devil's advocate on both sides. The reason to make it smaller is, do you want to give the MPO any more control over your county than you have to? That's the reason to keep it as small as you possibly can. The reason to make it larger is they actually do planning studies, and you're not going to get any meaningful studies if you don't have a big enough area to actually look at. You know, to study the, and I'll say this, if the MPO is actually, since all this has come up, has included us in 2 of their proposals, as they have Brian. One is for a park and ride study that's taking our entire county and looking at a true park and ride proposal, whether that would be funded or not, to see where we could locate lots, but actually put a commuter system to service those. You know, whether that's CAT, who would have to have an intergovernmental agreement come up here, whatever that is. And they're also looking at us with an advanced traffic management system we've been included in, which is, in our situation, not extremely helpful, because what it looks at is the timing of all signals, how they're tied together. And in Chatham, they're looking at putting the control or whatever, this is the brains of it, in a new building that has yet to be built on Hunter Air Base over there, which is their new SEMA 911 center. And what that does is link all of their signals together to where they can control the timings on all those pieces from one system. It helps them a lot more than us, because they can run different timing patterns during peak hour than they do during the middle of the day. Us, it doesn't help. All we need is to time them on 21, so that if you catch one, you catch them all, and that's already been done by GDOT. All of ours are managed by GDOT.
Do you know, are there studies that support, like Chatham County, the area that's already in that, are they receiving more of a financial benefit from the urbanized funds that they're able to obtain than what they are spending? Or?
That's like any other funds, they don't get more. And the larger we make this boundary, we get no more funds for it. It's based on the urbanized area only. So if we increase it from where it is to here, to here, to here, the funding's the same.
So what's the point of increasing it at all then? I don't understand that.
My biggest problem with all of this is the funds come. Tom Thompson loves to spend money on studies, and it never hits the road. I mean, it just, he loves spending money on studies.
My fault on that, I may be extremely naive or just ignorant in this statement, but either way, my thought on that is, right now, Tom is, if all of y'all don't know, Tom is over the MPC and the MPO, he wears both hats. The MPO is funded through the MPC. They're part of the MPC. They're all MPC staff. The MPC is funded by Chatham County City Savannah. That's it. So when this reapportioned MPO comes on, not only are they going to ask for money for Effingham and Bryan, but they're going to ask for money from Pooler, Fort Wentworth, Vernonburg, Tybee. All of those people now have skin in the game. So again, I may be naive or just wrong in this, but in the past, I think they've allowed Tom to do those things because it wasn't their money. They didn't really control it.
Why would we move the line from where the purple at all? What's the reason? What is a reason to do that?
From an engineering standpoint, it gives you better studies. They're able to study this area better as far as corridor linking, as far as the ability to move traffic in and out. It'll be included that they are going to update our travel demand models. There's a lot of things that are going to happen through this process. from an engineering standpoint. From your standpoint, you're giving up control of your county. Plain and simple, you're giving up control of your county to the MPO for federally funded projects. So there's reasons on both sides why you wouldn't do it. Now, again, if I put on the engineering hat, and the reason I just turned these roads on, the reason I gave you that in your book is you will look at it. I don't foresee any big expenditure of federal funds on any of the roads shown there, quite frankly. So I don't think it's really going to affect us. I don't think we're really giving, again, because we're only giving up control if it's an Effingham Parkway. It's federally funded through GDOT. If it's the signing and striping plans that we did on McCall, Blue Jay, those aren't affected. We can still get those dollars and administer those locally. If it's LMIG money, those are not affected. You look confused, this is a very confusing
So
thing.
the purple area does include what we would suspect would be the area that a study would be held. If one is done, any project that we do would be done in that area most likely. And I'm thinking Effingham Park.
The purple area is what's required, is the best way to look at it. That's what's coming in
We have a choice in the
regardless
purple
of.
area, but that doesn't include the parkway, right?
It includes a portion of it, not the entire length, but yes, the parkway, and if I could zoom in on this map, I'll show you.
But the traffic pattern stuff is.
Yeah, 30 somewhere in here, it's coming up, through a portion of it, yes, ma'am. Not the entire length of it, but a portion of it, yes. It will be regardless of what this board decides, because it's in that urbanized area.
It wouldn't be with areas.
No, that's what.
It would be more.
And I'm sorry, I can't always say it, it's, a portion of it is, you're probably, that may be 30 right now. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's over here. But,
At the end of the day, we just got to figure out how to make lemonade with the lemons. It's nothing we want.
it's not, and again, the board, that's why I put all this information. I'll spend as much time as y'all want, I'll help when you're ready, but I just want y'all to be comfortable with it. And I think the chairman, like you, we all got an education in this. We've been to 3 or 4 or 5 of these, and I think we're still learning. So, and we've had Tom McQueen, who works for GDOT, who I still don't know his official title. He's been dubbed as the MPO guru, is what I've been told his title is. Has come in and spoken to us also and given us a lot of insight. So, I mean, there's been a lot of meetings on this topic that we've went through, and you certainly need all the information you want to do this. If you're not comfortable tonight, that's perfectly fine. Tom's asking, but I wouldn't let him push you in a decision that's going to affect you, because I don't think it'd be done like that.
I'd be inclined to say if we ended up voting tonight, that I would vote to just stick with what we pretty much don't have a choice to go with, which is the smallest amount, the purple amount, because we can always expand. We can always change that and make it larger.
And I want to be real clear on what I'm saying, because I'm saying a lot of stuff. The purple boundary was, it may be easier if you look at this information I gave you earlier. There's a report that was actually done by MPO, and it's titled something about reapportionment for Effingham County. And it has some maps in it. Page 5 of 23 is probably the best one to look at. If you look on 5 of 23, the map at the bottom, the yellow section is the urbanized area. That's what's actually the urbanized area. The green on this represents the purple up there. That's where the MPO went and ran that boundary out to the nearest roads. Again, the law says what's urbanized and expected to be urbanized. We have not yet come up with a good way to determine what's expected to be urbanized. So we believe that the federal highway has the ultimate say over this, would approve this purple boundary. Now, they came back to this a little bit bigger, but I think what you're saying is the vote would be to take the minimum that we could put into it.
That would be, if we voted tonight, that would be.
There are some other advantages of going to either a congressional district line or a census tract or block, which is it makes data tabulation a whole lot easier. Because when you go into federal highway, it's a federal program. As you may be guessing at this point, there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of paperwork, a lot of reporting. So the easier we can grab these blocks, the easier we can grab data out of them. It does make it easier, but it's not impossible to split them this way out.
I would not have any problem with the purple, or even if you go up to the division between the 12th and the 1st district, either one of those, I don't have a problem with either one of them.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, my personal opinion is, I don't think there's gonna be a federal project, as soon as I say that, won't come up. But, you know, again, our transportation advisory board, what their vote actually was to take the smallest area that still allows us 2 votes, because that whole thing hasn't been settled either, that if we go a lot smaller, they, the NPO, whoever, the policy committee, may come back and say, well, since you have such a minor portion in this, you only get 1 vote, and we certainly don't want that, we definitely want 2, because if we get 1, then we're dealing with how do we split between Rankin, how does that work, those sorts of things. And it will be modified slightly from this, because I believe Rankin's file will have just taken their city limits, so, and I believe the write-up actually says their city limits, so this is really reflected correctly.
So the transportation board saying as small an area is possible, that's the purpose.
Yes, sir. And again, that's a non-binding board, that was just their recommendation to this board.
But from an engineering standpoint, we can get data easier if we go to the congressional line. We can get studies done better if we go to the congressional line. And it's not gonna cost us any more, and we're really not giving up anything if we go to the congressional line.
Yes, on everything except the last one, that's my opinion, we're not giving up anything. We will be if a federal project comes up, and it doesn't mean you give it up, it just means you give up control. And when I say you give up control, we still don't control GDOT with the STIP. We feel like, I think as elected people sometimes, and you probably do, have a better shot going and talking to the commissioner directly rather than through the NPO. In other words, for to make their priority list, their tip, takes not only this board saying to support it, it takes all 16 votes saying to support it. So from an elected official standpoint, the negative, in my opinion, is always you don't want to give up control, but you don't have to. And that's what you're doing. From an engineering standpoint, I don't see a downside to it.
But we wouldn't get the study done at all to be able to qualify for the federal. If it's
Only within the purple, yes. Well, no, that's not true now. We would still be, not through the MPO, but we could still get federal dollars here through the STIP just like we do today. We're going to have a weird process regardless of where our projects will be in both the STIP and the TIP, which the TIP's in the STIP by reference, but we still will split that because it's not going to be the entire county. So there'll be a portion of the county that's done the way that it currently is through the STIP meetings that were yesterday. And I'll give y'all that list. Matter of fact, it's probably right in front of you.
So let's sum this thing up and let's take it from a different approach. The purple is what the Transportation Advisory Board has, in their wisdom, thought that's what we should do.
Yes, sir.
Then play the devil's advocate. Is there any reason to do any more than the purple? Let's approach.
Only from an engineering standpoint that the studies that we would get out of it are more meaningful. You know, it's difficult to study transportation of travel demand patterns and transportation upgrades and improvements if your study area is only a portion of all your roads.
Does that benefit outweigh giving up the control?
If you're going to have a large number of federally controlled projects, no, sir, I can't see how it ever would. It is just my opinion that if you look at the roads in here, we probably won't have any federal funded projects. Again, time I say that, one will pop up. So that's where the board has to decide, is it worth those benefits?
To me, there's just too many unanswered questions to give up any more with the policy committee, and there's just,
And
right now, and it may be the best thing, and with the information we have, I just don't
But
see
you
it.
can always add to it.
yes, sir, and that's what I was about to say. The flip side of that is, yes, sir, if we come in and this board says, I don't know why we didn't do this 400 years ago, it's the best thing since sliced bread, you can always add more. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
So it's probably better to start small.
Do I have a motion from this board to accept the purple areas?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second to accept the purple area as recommended by the Transportation Board. Is that proper motion for us to get this moved forward?
That's
No
fine,
other
yes, sir.
discussion, I'll take a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Well, we went
I'll be brief as always.
You have a minute and a half.
I'll be just as brief as I was on the EPA. Committee report. I'll provide y'all the copy in just a moment. And I'll skip all the unnecessaries. Herbert Kessler Road meeting is scheduled with the Davises this Friday at 4 o'clock. Commissioner Ford, I know you, Chairman Kessler are going to be there, so just as soon as we get a consensus with them, we'll put that back on the agenda to move forward.
In this meeting, are we going to meet at the site of
No, sir, I asked them to meet here so we could look at the maps and drawings and all. We need to go out there, we certainly can, but I thought it'd be easier here. Westwood Heights, as I mentioned before, I was a little late on getting it to your 6th agenda. There's a change order. The actual price is about $10,000. That's to run double 30-inch pipes underneath Lord Effingham to help alleviate that based on the study we'll look at later that'll be coming. The STIP meeting was yesterday. I'll give each one of y'all a copy of the draft STIP so that y'all have that. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me. It's the same thing we've had on there pretty much for years. I will go ahead and say before one of y'all recognize it, I-16 Old River Road is not included in here. It's because it's outside of the STIP. Since there's no right-of-way acquisition, they don't need it to review it. And the funding is outside of the STIP years. However, we discussed it again yesterday. GDOT is very well aware that we're trying to have our plans done first quarter of next year in time to go back to their STIP. Even if it's in there, they can do a STIP amendment to add it, so they understand we're trying to get this funded next fiscal year, which is July 1, or even at the end of the next one. So everybody knows it, but before y'all, it is missing in the STIP. Now, make sure y'all have a copy of that. The pumps at the treatment plant, as y'all know, we went around the ability to accept waste from septic haulers. One of the pumps has been repaired at this point. We are now accepting waste again. The two permanent impellers have been ordered. We expect those here by the end of next week, here and installed by the end of next week. So it's operational, but the improvements to make it permanently temporary, if you will, are in there. And at some point in the future, we need to just begin discussing a more permanent solution to have a correct receiving station with pre-treatment and all, bar screen strip removal, all this stuff, and that'll come to y'all in the future. But it's $50,000 to $75,000 item, so we're going to go on what we're doing now. I just say at some point in the next couple of years, we need to have that discussion. Jail construction, I'll give y'all a handout that just shows if you want to tilt walls, they may even be up by now, because this is all from the last meeting we didn't do it.
It is not included in the.
It's included in here, but I'll copy of it. I'll get you a copy of it, just gives you the progress.
Like the weekly progress, we can provide that.
Correct, we're just going to give you the weekly progress reports, keep you. On August the 20th, which is our next Transportation Advisory Board meeting, and for those of y'all that don't know, the last meeting we decided to start doing these bi-monthly instead of monthly. We just really didn't have a big enough agenda. So the next one will be in August, then October and December and so forth. On the August the 20th meeting, after the meeting, we're going to have, and I didn't bring the email with the whole list, but we've been asked, Mr. K. Ron Ivory, who's the district engineer for our district, Ron Nelson, our area engineer, Melvin Johnson, the area maintenance, his engineers, project engineer, permit engineer, and the maintenance person, or the maintenance person that does the designs, is coming to discuss with us, particularly road maintenance. I believe Mr. Rob McCall, district traffic engineer, is coming. There's 5 or 6 of them are coming. They wanted to specifically meet with the chairman for his, just to be, say, whoever. The entire board's invited. Should you want to come, it'll be at 10 o'clock approximately. We're just going to have it after our Transportation Advisory Board meeting. Ms. Purcell said she would try to be here as well for that. She didn't promise, but she's going to try to be here. So if y'all want that on your calendar, August the 20th, 10 o'clock. Again, it's just a time to meet our GDOT people. And if there's any questions that any of y'all have for them, if you'll let me know, I'll get them to them ahead of time so they can answer those specifically for y'all. And then way out, October the 16th, the State Transportation Board will be in Savannah. They're going to have their meeting here. and there's more information to come on that. Ms. Ann had no details, although she said y'all will all be invited in some fashion, form or another, to some function. As she gets details, they'll come along. But they'll actually hold their meeting in Savannah, and they're going to tour the ports and do some other things while they're here. And just that quickly, that's all I have.
Any other say? Any commissioners?
I got a couple of questions. My turn. Everybody else has anything? Mine's short. Advertise for clerk, I think y'all started sort of high there, $45,000 to $50,000. And how about the administrator? Have y'all sent out anything on the administrator yet?
No, sir.
Pardon?
No, sir. And Ms. Rush is here to discuss that with you. I do apologize. I did have one more thing. I asked her to come to discuss those two things with you.
And I'll ask one more before she starts. How about the audit? It's about 3 or 4 weeks late now. You've heard anything from Don Keynes?
Oh,
Special audit? That's special
No,
audit?
sir, I have not. Have you? Keep Effingham beautiful. No, sir, I've not.
He was supposed to have it done 3 or 4 weeks ago, if I'm correct.
I believe I had referred some of the communication with Mr. Kessler. Apparently there was some staff that he had asked some questions of and some documentation of, and he had not gotten that as of about a week and a half ago, I believe. I have not talked with him in the last week, but the last time I did speak with him, that was what he was waiting on. I can call him and follow up.
Please.
Yes, sir.
Please. What staff would it be? I mean, is it?
I believe there was some stuff that IT was pulling, and I think at one point HR was pulling some information for him, and he received that, I think, in the last week or so. And he was going through that additional information along with, I think there was some information from IT he was waiting.
So is there a projected date now to finish, you know?
My understanding was he was simply waiting on that last bit of information, that he had already drafted the report, and I would have expected that to follow this last week. I just have not had a chance to follow up with him since last week, communicating with him.
I can follow up that, and if it's okay with y'all, we can just email the board and let them know. Is that fine with y'all? As soon as we get, I'm assuming we can be law. If that's fine, we'll just send, I'll get Ms. Johnson to send out an email to y'all if that's acceptable, so y'all all know the updated date, so you don't have to wait till the next meeting.
That's all I have.
Last question was a good one, because it stole my thunder. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
Pass it on. That was my question too.
Any other commissioners? Well, let's hear what Ms. Rowe has.
Well, to follow up with Mr. Lipper's question regarding the county clerk posting, it has been up now for your required 2 weeks. We have some decisions to make, and staff is asking for direction if you want to continue that solicitation of applications extended anymore, or if you're ready to review. You've received approximately 20 applications, although they have not been vetted at this point. I wait till all come in before I start looking through. Additionally, do you want a Board of Commissioner panel appointed to also do some vetting, a panel to do your interviewing, and how many you will need in your final selection for review are also there in your schedule. And then after that, we can discuss the pay grade. Was approved by the Board of Commissioners years ago. The last update to your pay grades was done in 2009, and that was approved by the board. So you are at base rate. So I will say that. You do have some flexibility whether you hire someone who is certified or not certified. You can make that decision as you go through your interviews. And there is some flexibility in the salary depending on when that certification takes place. So, to answer that question.
So you say we've had 20 applications?
Just
so
about,
far,
yeah, you have about 20
roughly,
applications. And it has been advertised both locally and through the state.
There's a question.
Sorry. Yes, it's on state websites.
When you know, do something with the administrator, Tom,
I'm ready to move forward with the administrator as soon as I speak with all of you regarding about the same questions. Are you set with the job description as is? What are your contract, on your base contract pieces going to be? I can tell you out of the gate, your base salary is going to be the first question that someone is going to ask me probably before they apply. Also, what you're going to be available for negotiation within your contract. And how much information do you want me to solicit off? Do you want a curriculum vitae? Do you want application? Do you want cover letter, resume? Those are the decisions you need to make. And I will set that job posting as soon as you'd like.
I think you could go with what we got have on record, and then we can always change some of that stuff before we hire anybody.
I can do that, and I can start with that's the base that has always been discussed, absolutely. If that's the decision of the board.
Well, I think we need to have a little
Sure.
more detailed discussion about that.
I can put a packet together of all that information, and then anything that you might want to change if that's what you'd like. It won't take me very long.
Effingham County, you've got a county administrator's description, you got a county manager's description. What Effingham County has had is kind of a hybrid. It's neither one nor the other, so.
Correct.
I think, we are on record with the state as having a county administrator form of government.
Yes, you are.
But I think this board needs to have a little more in-depth, discussion as to what we're actually going to be looking for, so that can be a little more definitive of the person that's applying, so that we don't have some of the issues down the road that we might have if we're not as definitive. Does that make any sense?
Yes, but we need to go ahead and do it, I mean, whatever.
Well, I don't know who all has been privy to this conversation. I think you were in a meeting one day with me, and we kind of looked at, maybe not being pushed into doing that, but we're looking at maybe a first of a year as having a permanent administrator. So I think we've got a little bit more time to sit down and make some,
Clerk issue, get that ironed out. That's gonna take some time.
and get a few more of our issues and policies and things straightened out before we start getting somebody to administer it. I think the county needs some definitive policies for an administrator to administer this.
If it's an administrator, not.
If it's an administrator. If it's a manager, then it needs to be some very definitive.
The difference is, again, it's control. The manager is
That's
given a lot more power and a lot more control than the administrator.
That's right.
Administrator does what the board tells the administrator to do. Manager tells the board what it did.
But I think to your question, I certainly can't speak for a whole board, but I think that we need to address the clerk situation. Let's get that situated and have maybe a round table discussion workshop as to exactly what we're going to be expecting of an administrator before we start advertising that. Do I have a consensus of that?
I'm fine with
Anybody?
that. Be nice, but yeah, I'm fine with that.
Well, I don't see any reason not to move on. It's not like you have to have one before you have the other. You can have a administrator or manager and change the policy or create a policy. It's not like you have to do all that before they're hired, but.
No, but if I was looking to take a job with somebody, I would want to know that my policies and everything.
Now, if you're talking about a job description, that, yes, okay, I'm cool with that. But policies, no, it doesn't matter. If we have a policy to leave the lights on all night, whatever that policy is, then that person is going to administer it or manage that.
He's talking about the description, so that's.
Yeah, job description, I see, but it's not like we have to have all our policies in place before you hire someone.
But we, in our last meeting, discussed cleaned up before we start having somebody that may apply that might be married to another employee in this county?
Well, that's already in a policy, isn't it?
You already have a policy regarding employees that are married, yes. But if you want to expand, change, update, you can do that as well. It is something that they are not directly supervisory of each other, but that's pretty much the only thing that will stop that.
I just said that as a case in point.
I think there's wisdom in attempting to do it in a rushed basis. I think we do have our plate full. Do the clerk, and I would say I agree with what Chairman Kessler said.
Okay,
Probably
so,
would have good to apply some of that wisdom in the rush to fire the previous.
I don't remember anybody getting fired.
Oh, I do.
all right, let's deal with the case and what we've got right now. We have approximately 20 applications for
Yes,
a
sir.
job that we posted for.
Correct.
And you are asking this board, how do we want to proceed? Do we want to have a committee to do?
Well, do you want to
interviews?
extend your time frame? That would be the first part. Are you still, the job will remain open until you fill it, but do you want to extend it any longer before we start review of any of the applications?
Well, this is a new thing for me, so.
Do you have any good ones?
I'm assuming I do, but I have not vetted them yet, no. I'm waiting for your decision on that. I'm happy to vet them if you'd
I
like.
think it would help us to know, if you take a look at them,
Sure.
you've got 10 great candidates, and that helps us make that decision. If
Okay.
you look at it and you say, these are not good, then we have a different decision.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what your thoughts are first.
All right.
How about this? Does this work? Let's keep the posting open for one more week,
Okay.
and at our next meeting, you give us your opinion as to, give us an outline of what you've received to that
Sure.
point, and let us have more information, to be able to make a wise decision.
Absolutely. That's that
Is
right.
that fair?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So the posting is on, you said the state website. What is that?
It is actually the one that we do through, it's the georgiastate.gov that you can go down through, and then that hooks into the DCA and also hooks in. I'm not sure if ACCG links into it still, but I think they have a link on their website to go there. It's just georgiajobs.gov and how that works. We're very specific. It's a location. This is a very specific position. So 20 applications in 2 weeks honestly is not a bad piece based upon what your description is and what your qualifications are and what we're asking for.
So educate me a little bit. What exactly do you do to vet an application?
Applications, first of all, I'm going to take your minimum qualifications, and anything that does not meet that automatically will be pulled. And then we're going to see what we have. I'm going to look at everything from education to background to job experience, and we will actually graph that out for you. So you will see. And then, of course, if there's any internal candidates, you'll have a chance to review them as well. We review all our internal candidates, it's part of the policy of the county. And then you will be able to make a decision. We will present who's there, you'll make a decision of how many you're going to interview. You can extend that at any time. And you can interview candidates and you can make a selection or not, that's up to you.
You're fully capable of being able to do that in-house
Yes,
and give us that information next Tuesday.
yes.
How many of the 20 applicants are existing county employees?
From what I understand, there are 2, but I can't, it's at least 2, let's put it that way. There may be more if it was anything was received today.
Okay?
Okay? All right, thank you.
One other
I
small,
thought we were finished with you.
one other small issue. This is going to be on your next agenda. This is not for discussion tonight. These are the proposals for the 3 system upgrades. What I really wanted to go through, Stephanie, did the other pieces get in there? What I really wanted to go through is, this is the proposal for the 3 system upgrade. And how do you put it in 4 and 6 and 8? There's 2 sections in here that a lot of this is largely the same. There are, one proposal is to have just the South Tower, and one's to do the whole county. In that book, though, we put the sections of the original proposal for coverage and pricing. We didn't put the entire agreement because a lot of the actual agreement is the same. The equipment's largely the same, and whether we all understand what the flux capacitor is or not, is a different issue. But what we really wanted to point out was the differences in coverage, whether you just upgrade the south tower, the whole thing, and the price. And my question to you tonight is that fine with y'all, or do you want to see both? And the only difference is about another 800 sheets of paper. Quite honestly, I mean, that's, if you want to see both proposals, I want to give you the information you need, number one, and number two, if you're fine with just that book, I'd rather not put it in your packages that come out so we don't have to duplicate the information. Because it'd be the exact same information. Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
You're giving us a committee report telling us that we're going to have this to consider under our agenda for our next meeting.
Yes, sir, that is what was taken.
And don't throw this away because you would rather us look at this information rather than reproduce it and put it into our book.
Yes, sir, that's 100% correct. And understand that instead of giving you two complete proposals, an inch and a half thick, we only gave you the coverage maps and the pricing out of the first one, yes, sir. So you can compare what it does by adding all towers to just one and the pricing.
Are you gentlemen going to be back here next Tuesday night?
Yes, we would be happy to, sir.
Because I got a feeling I can get a lot more out of questions than I can out of reading it.
Chairman, if I could give you a brief overview of the two plans and the way they're presented. On June 18th, the Board of Commissioners was presented a proposal from Motorola for a two-site, 7-channel communications upgrade that would dramatically improve the southern region of Effingham County concerning the communications infrastructure, and would also create a platform for future growth that would be required in 2017. The initial upgrade to the southern region would require funding in the amount of $531,000, a service agreement in the amount of $643,000 over the next 5 years, and grounding upgrades in the amount of $48,635 to bring the cost of a two-site simulcast system to $1.2 million over the next 5 years. This option would also require that the North Horizon Tower be upgraded in or about 2017 due to the current 4.1 system becoming obsolete. The estimated for this upgrade in 2017 is $1.8 million, bringing your grand total to $3.022 million over the next 5 years. During this Commissioners meeting, you requested to have a proposal for a complete 3-site P25 7-channel simulcast system, which would provide 95% coverage throughout Effingham County on a portable. The proposal that was prepared for you from the Motorola Corporation included the full 3-site upgrade, all grounding upgrades, 5 years of maintenance for both the 7.7 system and the E911 system, and structural upgrades to the North Horizon Tower for $2.9 million. Which will produce a savings of $93,106.90 over the course of the next 5 years. This item will be presented during the August 6th Commissioner meeting.
And I am sure that we're going to hear that next meeting, aren't we?
In some form, yes.
I think.
It's probably the introduction to the actual presentation at the next meeting.
All right. Any other staff reports, committee meetings? I am told that we need to have a short,
Very short.
10-minute executive